Here is a stunning home on Australia's most expensive street in Point Piper, Sydney. It just sold for $23 million. The centrepiece is an award-winning spiral staircase that cost $500,000 alone. I built that house. My name is Steve, and for 15 years, I was a builder in Sydney working on some of the most prestigious projects you can imagine. Now, I'm a real estate agent and have been for the last 10 years. I have sold over 1,000 properties, and the career transition has given me some things most agents simply don't have. The ability to see a property through the eyes of someone who's actually built it. But this isn't just a story about changing careers. It's about how 15 years of swinging hammers, reading floor plans, and solving construction problems every single day has transformed the way I help my clients buy and sell real estate. And most importantly, it's about how you can apply some of this or some of my builder's mindset to get better results when selling your own home. Let me take you back to where it all started. I grew up in Batemans Bay working as an apprentice carpenter for my old man. After finishing my apprenticeship, I made the move to Sydney and started working for a prestigious building company. One project led to another, and soon architects started asking me to quote jobs, and those projects kept getting bigger and bigger. I wasn't just building regular homes, I was constructing houses for movie stars, athletes, and some of Australia's biggest CEOs, and clients who demanded nothing but the absolute best. Take that house in Point Piper. That was a massive renovation project, and that required incredible attention to detail and craftsmanship. But perhaps my most unique project was the Taronga Zoo chimpanzee enclosure. Yes, you heard that right. I was responsible for building all the timber structures and viewing platforms that the chimps climb on. It was an incredibly challenging project on multiple levels, and if you know where to look inside that enclosure, my brothers and my initials are carved into one of the structures. I always think back to this project, and I'm proud of the challenges we faced and overcame as natural problem solvers. It's a bit of a claim to fame. Then there was the project in Bellevue Hill. The client called me up asking for a simple paint job, just a quick $30,000 touch-up, he said. Well, one thing led to another. What if we knock out these windows and put in some big bifolds, he asked. Before we knew it, that $30,000 paint job had turned into a $2.5 million renovation. That's how these things go in the building world. You start seeing possibilities everywhere. But here's the thing about success in building, it comes with a price. As my company grew and the projects became more complex, I found myself spending less time with the tools in my hands and more time in front of a computer, managing spreadsheets, watching budgets, and dealing with staff issues. Building had been my childhood dream, but suddenly it wasn't fun anymore. The stress was enormous. I was living in Sydney, dealing with traffic, managing big contracts, and that pressure was taking the joy out of what I'd always loved doing. Meanwhile, my family, 4 brothers and a sister, had all moved to Canberra and were doing really well for themselves. I thought, you know what? I could have a much simpler life there. I wasn't a massive fan of Canberra's weather, and I'm still not, but the idea of escaping the Sydney rat race was very appealing. The decision to leave building wasn't easy, but I knew I needed a change. The catalyst for getting into real estate came from an unexpected source. My brother. While he was helping me build that chimpanzee enclosure at Taronga Zoo, our mum called in from Canberra. She'd just bought a house and mentioned how much she'd paid up front for a building report. My brother's response? If I could do 4 or 5 of those reports a week, I'd be pretty happy. So he moved to Canberra and started what is now Canberra's largest property inspection company. They do 60% of Canberra's building inspection reports today. When I called him about moving to Canberra, saying I didn't want to be a builder anymore, he suggested real estate. I said, what's that involve? His answer was pretty casual. Well, they just seem to cruise around, have a coffee, have a chat, and make good money. So based on that sophisticated analysis, I decided to give real estate a try. What surprised me most about the industry was how much the top performing good agents invest in ongoing training and self-development. In building, once you finish your TAFE and get your license, there's not much ongoing education other than on-site learning from mistakes. But in real estate, the successful agents are constantly refining their craft, becoming better communicators, better negotiators, and better versions of themselves. Now, here's where my building background becomes a game changer in real estate. When I walk through a property, I see things other agents miss. I see defects that could be deal breakers. I see potential renovations that could add significant value. Most importantly, I can spot what might have been covered up. Let me give you some real examples. Another agent had a property in McGregor on the market for 150 days. The owner was frustrated and losing money and called me in tears, literally. When I looked at the property, the problem was really obvious. It was painted dark purple inside. The previous agent couldn't bring himself to have that difficult conversation with the owner. I told the client straight up, I can sell this for you, but you need to take my advice. We repainted it, fixed up the details, got it styled, and put it back on the market. It sold unconditionally in 4 days. Another example was when we were selling a 4-bedroom home with an odd living area that wasn't being used well. I suggested converting it into a 5th bedroom. For $10,000 to $15,000, we added a wall, a door, and a built-in robe, updated the floor plans, and suddenly it was in the 5-bedroom home category, a much more expensive market segment. Nothing scares me when I see a building report. When other agents might panic or not know how to handle defects, I can review any building report and provide advice based on experience. I can tell my sellers which defects are minor and easily fixed and which ones need more attention. I actually recently saved a deal when a building inspector flagged something as a defect that was actually just standard building practice. The buyer was ready to walk away, but I explained what they were seeing was just normal formwork. That reassurance gave her the confidence to proceed with the purchase. Now, you might be thinking, that's great, Steve, but I'm not a builder. How does this help me? Here's the thing, you don't need to be a builder to think like mine when it comes to selling your home. Let me share some of my combined builders and agents' wisdom that any homeowner can apply. First, the biggest misconception I see, property owners often resist doing final cosmetic improvements because they think, well, buyers might not like the color we choose or the carpet we pick. That is backwards thinking. Buyers aren't looking for your personal taste, they're looking for something fresh and ready to move into. As long as the color palette is neutral, they can move in and plan their future renovations around that later. But the moment they see feature walls, red carpets, or outdated finishes, they stop thinking about how much they'd pay and start calculating how much they'll need to spend to fix things. Secondly, understand the difference between smart improvements and overcapitalization. You can easily waste money renovating bathrooms or kitchens if you're selling in the short term. But simple things like fresh paint, new carpet, and basic styling, that's money well spent. Third, think about functionality, not just aesthetics. Sometimes a simple layout change can move your property into a completely different market category. That unused formal dining room, maybe it's actually a home office or a 4th bedroom. That awkward living space, perhaps it's better suited as something else entirely. Finally, be honest about your property's condition. Just like in building, you can't chase your mistakes around forever. If there are obvious issues, address them up front rather than hoping buyers won't notice. Quality buyers always notice and they'll factor those problems into their offers. The key is to present your property in the best possible light without cutting corners. Think of it as affordable quality. You don't need to go over the top, but you can't cut corners either. Looking back on both careers, the most valuable lesson has been honesty. In building, you can try to chase your mistakes around a job site, but eventually they catch up with you. The same is true in real estate. We don't cut corners in presentation, marketing, or customer service because we're looking to optimize the entire process from the very start. Whether you work with me or another agent, remember to think like a quality builder. Focus on quality, don't cut corners, be honest about issues, and always solve problems rather than avoid them. If you're looking for a real estate agent who can see the potential in your property, who understands construction quality, and who can guide you through renovations that actually add value, not just cost money, then let's have a conversation. Because after 15 years of building and 10 years of selling, I can promise you this. There's always a way to get the deal done at the right price with the right terms. It just comes down to problem solving on both sides of the equation. Cheers.